info@ricconsulting.co.za email address. Okay, but right now let's start. Let me share my screen. Let's go and see what's happening. Okay, so can everyone see my screen? Someone give a go ahead. We're all right.
Yes.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so if we have a look at it, every time the upgrade comes through, and they come through quickly now. I mean, every 3 months, you don't realize how fast 3 months goes. And each 3 months, I think, oh wow, it's too soon. I don't know if I should upgrade. And then I see the features in it, and I think I have to upgrade. So what I'm going to cover, we didn't really do WhatsApp, what's new in November. So some of the things I've also brought across here, just because it also looked good in the little app I've tried to build, and the general things we're going to go through. Okay, so basically the things I'm going to show you today, these are all the things I've tried. I've played with them, I've experienced it, and these are kind of my views and things on it. So please, if anyone else has other thoughts or interests, please join in. This is not a one-way thing. You are welcome to ask questions at any time or give suggestions on things you see. Okay, so I'm going to kind of start with the front end and the things the business that your users will actually see that have come through new. And the first one you'll see straight away is this new chart, this grid chart. And what's really nice about it, it's almost the opposite of your scatter plot. So your scatter plot worked on two expressions, and you had your two measures, and you had your dimension in the middle. This is now the other way around. We've got your two dimensions on your X and Y, and your measure that you're recording here. So what I've kind of done to try and show you how these little these little shapes, I've used stars, but you can use circles and triangles and all sorts of things. But to kind of show what it does, how the size can change depending on your values, I'm going to use their little animator button. So is everyone all right? Okay, so this little animator button came out, I think in November or maybe in the September release. But great little feature where it can go through all my different product groups for me. So my report here is going by product subclass and my customers. Hi, sorry, does someone need to ask something? No. Okay. So if I play the little animator, when you see it, it will slowly choose the different product groups that it's going through, and you see how the data changes based on what's selected. One of the nice features that I wanted to show as we go through is how, see all the KPIs and everything are changing. Sales 2013 and 2014. What we're going to do is change that. One of the best features, I think, in the whole release is the around master items. So I'm going to edit the sheet because I want to show you how the master items work now. So if I go into master items and I go to measure, now many of the end users wouldn't be creating these, but you will be using these. So if I had sales 2013, I'm just going to edit him. I actually want him to be now. I want him to become my 2020. I can change this here, 2020, and I can change my formula to look at 2020. Apply, save him. And if I do the same for my 2014 one, edit him, okay. He must be 2021. Apply. Or I can say save. Now, the big thing with these, any of these master items, when you create it, basically we would have sum of sales. Let me go to my sales value one. It's our normal sum of sales. Our quantity would be sum of quantity. Sum of quantity. we can create a new one now, this average unit price. And this average unit price is calculated by taking my other two dimensions, my other two that I've created, my other master items. So I don't now have to duplicate my formulas across my master items, which is a really fantastic feature. If I go in here, let's see, okay, and I go into my actual value, it now reads far easier. It's my sales value divided by my quantity. And I only have to maintain my sales value field here, or my quantity fields here. Everything else will adjust. So if I go back to my done editing, stop our product groups, and let's run the animator again. Okay. The other great feature with them now, if you see on here, my color is changing depending on how 2021 is doing against 2020. So if I'm below, it goes red, and if it's above, it goes this sort of funny other colors. Okay. That is another one of these great features, so that on this KPI, previously you had to build in your colors, if you're setting up your dimensions, you had to actually set up a formula here itself. But here I can actually go and tell it, I wanted to use my sales 2020 variable, and tell it to use that rather when it's building my colors. And in that way I can tell it, if it's lower, it can be red. If it's greater, it can be green. Done. So before, the general way was to create a variable that you had to link into your master item and then use the variables in the screen somewhere else. And now the requirement for actual variables has almost gone away. And I think it's fantastic news. Works well in my world. Very happy with that thought. Okay. So that covers our areas there. Within the application now, there's the new option. Oh, sorry, stop. Okay. There's another option where you can hide sheets. So what I've done, if I go to what's new in my sheets layout, you'll see I've got one called what's new, then I've got a video player, and then I've got one called merge. Okay. So if I use my normal buttons and I tell go to the next screens, we've got a screen with video player, and I could go to the next one that was merge. Okay. But it's easily controllable now from within logic, within the coding and structure and everything. I can set up whether I want certain screens to be allowed. So at the moment I'm telling it to allow my video screen, I can tell it no, you can't have it. Now if I have a look, even if I go and choose the top bar, there's no video option here. I don't even see that sheet anymore. And if I'm in here and I tell it go to the next sheet, it goes straight to the merge one. So your user doesn't even know that there was a sheet there. It's completely hidden and secret. Okay. If I tell it yes, I want it back, now I can move. With a bit of luck, I'm back on my video screen. All right. So this is the new feature with the option to put in a video player. And so from within here, I can then you can actually then build in your own MP4 players and actually run your own videos. Okay, it has all the normal features, all the normal stuff you'd expect from playing any of your videos from in here. So this is a great idea if you've set up maybe a training program, how to navigate through Qlik or that sort of thing. You can put it on the front of any of your apps. If people need it, they can get in to see it, see an update on things that are happening there. Okay, while we're there, some of the other updates that I haven't actually had much chance, I haven't had an opportunity to try any of them, but there's the connectors now to the Amazon Athena. There's a lot of work being done on the Teradata ODBC connector. And in this app, anybody wanting this app, if you just send an email to info@RIC Consulting, we'll send it to you. You'll be able to install it. It assumes, of course, that you are on the latest version. Otherwise, if you're not on February 2021, you won't be able to open some of these features. Okay. The SAP one, unfortunately, I talked to some of my customers, but they felt that upgrading so that I could do this webinar wasn't important enough compared to running their normal year-end, month-end stuff and waiting for scheduled downtime. So yeah, so can't actually show you the new SAP connector in a live situation at this point, I'm afraid. That will have to come a little bit later. Okay. While we're here, I want to show you one of the new features as well is the reload button. Okay, so what Qlik has done, they brought an option. There's two options. You'll see there's a reload and a partial reload, and you can select that as a new feature within a button. So the idea is with a reload, if I click that one, you should see all these numbers here changing. It goes in this different color, so you know what it's running, and then comes back, and now it's refreshed. And now we've got our latest data. The reload is doing a full reload. So it's gone, it's run the whole script, and it's run everything that's in your load script in this app. It doesn't trigger if you've got a separate extractor or anything like that. It's not going to go and start those extractors for you from this button. Okay. So that will do a full reload. So in a way, if you are going to your data sources directly and back, you now give your user access to see data real time. As soon as they've hit that button, they're looking at live real data. A new feature that Qlik has brought out now is the merge function. And what merge will do is it works to that you can have your QVD or your data file in Qlik Sense. It can go and get your newer data and, as the name says, merge it into your existing data. So it's basically running your incremental loads for you. The general idea, if we go back, I'm going to go across and show you the tab I've created. So within here, there's a whole write-up on merge notes if you're interested. But to test it, what it will do is this, when I've loaded this data, it's a normal standard load data from, in my case, from an Excel spreadsheet. Okay. Then for the merge to work, when you go to read your new data, the new data has to come in. The very first field it gets in your data has to be an indicator to tell it, insert, are you inserting a new record? Are you updating a record, or you're deleting a record? And you can actually use the words insert, update, delete, or I, U, or D. I think it's set to just look at the first letter anyway. And what it will do is it will look, here we've got our fields, Jill, Jake, and Stephen, and they've got numbers 2, 3, and 3. If I go back to my first page and I hit the partial reload, you saw how long the reload took. If you hit partial reload, far quicker. It doesn't run the main loads. It only looks for the coding that's set to run where you're doing partial reloads. And if I go across to that tab again, you will see now that it's changed now. Now we've got new data. It wasn't just 2, 3, and 3. We've now got 2, 4, and 5. So to actually show you what that kind of looks like in the script quickly, let's go to our data load editor in the merge function. So what happens is when the script runs, when you tell it to run a reload, it's loading the normal load. And oh, see, and I lied to you. It's not an Excel spreadsheet. I'm doing an inline load so that anyone can run this. Okay, so it would have originally loaded those 3 values. This new merge command, the merge, the only part says only run this if the person chose to see the incremental load. Okay, I could take this out, the only. Then when the first load happens, it would load persons, and it would then go and load this maybe from a different place or something. And then later on, when I do my second load, when I tell it to actually run, if I go back to my first screen, if I tell it to run the partial reload, then it would only trigger this part of the load, the merge part. It won't rerun the initial load that was here. Now you see when the data came in, for a change to apply, it had to have this operation field here, insert, delete, or update. So I told it to insert Mary, delete our record that we had for Stephen, and update Jake So Jake went from a 3 to a 5, and that's how this merge works. Definitely very, very useful going forward, where you can control which one you're running. Yes?
Yeah, so question, as you know, very often when the financial space, you have people at month end making a lot of changes or forecasting, and there's the requirement to reload more frequently. Are we saying that from a user perspective, we could configure or pre-configure partial reload components so that when they're doing those functions, it's easier for the user then to update it, every few minutes or every hour or whenever they need to as they're doing that process? So this now becomes a user function, and are we saying this is out of the dev side if it's configured already?
Yes, yeah. So we can, so now we can set up the coding and everything in the background that the user then controls when they want this to refresh for them. You can even do it to a point that it could be actually building up your whole data, depending on what you do with it in the background. So it opens up a huge scope of things that you could then now run from here.
Yeah, I think that's hugely valuable, because I've had many times, when data's got its normal reloads daily, but now you get to a process that they're following, and you've got users that need this, they need to check the effect of everything they're actually doing. So I think it's very powerful.
Yes, it's a fantastic thing, and this is the one area that I have spent a bit of time playing around with, because I know there's a lot of the sites that I have currently that we will end up using it. The only drawback at the moment is in any of the environments where you're running sort of a 2 or 3, 4 tier architecture, where you're building QVDs up through long extractors and that kind of thing. Sometimes this can still help, that you could then be reading your QVDs that exist, but you could have your separate bit of coding that says, okay, for just the very latest data, maybe the last hour or something, it can go and direct your database and pull it back from there. You've got to kind of balance it off to say, well, how many people would be running it, and how many people do you want hitting your database at any time they want? So there's always trade-offs, but yeah, on those critical financial apps, I can understand putting it in. Okay, that makes sense? Everyone okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then these are kind of the main features that affect us on the front end that we would see. So when I look at telling you about the things and how the merge statement works, there's a lot of work going in on the Insight Advisor side. So I know with chat you need the separate license and everything for it, but the way it's evolving and the way it's developing, where it lets you choose which app you want to see, it comes up now with suggestions. If you put in a command now, if you ask for some sort of information, it actually comes back and says, well, actually, you could be asking these kind of things as well. And you can click on those to follow ideas that it had based on the question you had. So it's getting a lot more interactive, and they've spent a lot of time working on the on the whole context. So each time you ask a question, so in this case, if you're asking where were my sales last year for baby wear, and it'll give you an answer. The next time you ask a question, it remembers that we're looking at sales last year, baby wear, etc., whatever you're doing now. And you can keep building more and more questions, adding to that. If you get to the point where you've had enough, it has a place to say, okay, stop this one, I want to start again. And you can carry on, you can then start a whole new questions and topics and things. Okay. But for more of us who spend a lot more time working within the Insight Advisor, I've got a group of interns. We're learning Qlik now, and they're seeing how Qlik can help generating some of these charts and things. And this is getting more and more clever as we go along. I mean, you think originally when this Insight first came out, and it used to tell you that you could sum your customer numbers and that kind of thing, that's definitely changed. It's getting far better at determining what to show you based on what you select. And a lot of that has to do with their logic model and things that they've built in the background. Now, one of the things, I'm just going to highlight one of the pages. what happens is in the background, it automatically sets up a logical model, and I'll show you that next. But as soon as you start to change the logical model, as soon as you do any sort of change, as soon as someone's working in Insights, they will get this message on the right-hand side that it says Insights is using business logic defined for the app, defined by the app owner. Insights will not learn from your preferences. So partly it's taking away the ability for the user to say, yes, I don't want you to use employee ID, I want you to use employee name on my forms. So, but generally that's something that can easily be set anyway. So it's saying, let's put in rules and processes in the background and control what can talk to what and what can link to what. So if we have a look at this as this new business logic, and it's available on all of them, and I'll show you, we'll go through a bit of it now, because it's getting more and more valuable, I think. And this is a part, this is kind of, it reminds me, when I first started within the IT world, you know, people used to say, what do you do for a living? I say, yeah, I'm in IT. And they say, wow, you must be clever. And now, I don't think anyone has ever said, you must be clever to me since 2000, because everybody's in IT now. But I think the biggest thing, and what Qlik has done is very clever about, is all my life in IT, we've struggled with, in any environment, you end up with almost these little pseudo IT systems developing in places where someone gets tired of coming to the IT department to ask for stuff. So they go and create their own little access database, or they go and download the QlikView desktop for free, or do something, and they build their own stuff that they want, and they don't go to IT for anything. And I think that's the whole reason it helps in this area here. So now our job will become more about the back end and getting the data right, and setting up this business logic. And let the user build their own apps. Let them choose their own models, their own visualizations and everything. And this logical model controls what kind of rules you want to put in place around it. So a great example and I'll show you in my demo, I've got my merge data and I've got my sales data. Now I don't want the user, when he goes into Insights, to ask to see what are sales by my merge user, because those are actually totally separate things. So in this logical model, I can put in something that says these are different. You can't ask for sales and merge in the same thing. Which is very useful. There's a lot of time in the apps where you don't want, it makes sense when we're building the visualizations, we know to build those, but your user won't. And this logic then gives them that power. So, and so with the logical model, we'll control how things can join. And the vocabulary is great. So you can, for example, you can set up things. So I've called mine adjusted sales. But if the person now types in earnings or income or something like that, the Insight Advisor will pick up that income actually for us means adjusted sales, and we'll put that in. So it's a bit more work at the beginning and upfront, but it's definitely worth the effort if it's set up right, I think, as we're going forward. Yes.
Another question. So you've covered obviously in the governed self-service type space, right, where you want to make sure that the users are using a certain structure. I remember Anthony Dayton kind of demonstrated something. I don't know if it's in play yet, but the flip side of that. So if you set up a governed environment where you are creating and looking for specific information, does it yet have in play the learning model, which tells me what other people, so let's say about 1,000 users that are starting to build these, does the Insights Engine yet pick up and say, this is the most common, or these are the most popular things that people are using for? In other words, that kind of machine learning aspect, that what other users in the business that are looking at sales, for example, are finding interesting.
Yeah, I need to actually follow up on that and check that out, because I know it is doing it. It is keeping that history per user, so it makes sense that it should be able to show you those.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the principles. It might be in there now, and I think it's good to explore, because that was one of the principles of saying, got 200 people, for example, in the field in sales that are building these. So as a user, when I come in and I say I want to look at products, I think the concept was to say, well, rather than starting at the beginning, can I show you the things that most of those other people seem to look for in the products, for the comparisons or measures and those kinds of things. I think it's that concept of learning from the collaborative part, learning from other users, speeding up that.
And it makes sense. I must admit, I hadn't actually thought about it, and I haven't seen anything that says it can yet. But that would be the next logical step, that it remembers what it does for all the other users and where there were commonalities. But it almost feels when if I go and set up this logical model, it overrides all of that thinking anyway. And it says, as the person who built this model, you will always know better. So it's kind of gone the other way again and said, okay, we won't.
I suppose the question is, can you
sorry?
Yeah, it's kind of, can you, well, I suppose the question is, can you switch it off? Since it's referring to the fact that it's saying that it's switched on, or that it's not learning from you. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if you can deactivate that so it does learn from everybody. It seems like there might be the latter.
Okay. So what we can do, we can actually go and have a look. So basically what I want to show you first, if I go to my load editor, not my load editor, my model viewer. All right. So just as I was saying earlier, so this model is fairly simple. I mean, it's got sales, it's got an item master, and it's got a customer master. And then it had this table called persons, which is where I was demoing how to merge data. Okay. So this persons data has absolutely nothing to do with all the stuff that's going on in my real app. Okay. So if I go to my sheets, and if I went into insights, I can ask it at the moment, I can say, and you can see there's my history of stuff, but I could say, show me sales. Okay, and let's go and choose one. Let's say sales adjusted, because that's the one I've been working with. I say sales adjusted by, and if I choose name, it gives me the option to look at by merge name. Okay. This number can't mean anything because there's no join between all of those things. So you can see all of them are showing exactly the same amounts. So it's a completely incorrect thing to be trying to look at. And I can't blame Qlik for that. That's me. That's my data. Okay. So what they've done is they've set up and said, right, well, if you went into this new logical model, you can then, and here you will see that it tells you. So currently, the one that's in use is generated by QlikSense. Do you want to continue? And so I didn't pick up. If we went back to that insights, you'll see on the side it's saying nothing's been learned yet, but you can create it. So I don't think it's learned from anyone else. It's only learning from me still. Okay, but if I go into the logical model and I tell it yes, I want to continue. What it will start at is at this overview point where it says, okay, this is basically everything you've got in place so far, which is not much. I don't have a lot of things. But the key area, if you went to fields and groups, it kind of puts all your fields into a group based on the table name that you had, really. So if I look at this, I've got merge, there's my merge data. What I can do is on here, I can tell it, I don't want this to be visible for that from within insights. So I can tell it to hide that one, and I can tell it to hide that one. Okay, and change data, may as well make him hide as well. Okay, I can also at the same time, I can try and enhance this data a little bit. So I could scroll down and you'll see I've got my customers, I've got the different items. If I scroll down a little bit further, I've got all my invoice stuff. If I go, it's already separated out the master items and saying, okay, those things are all dimensions. And it's got pretty clever at working out whether it's just a flat dimension or it's a date of some sort. Now you see in here, it has different options that it can drill down even further. So you can tell it, I know that this field is a city or country or it's an email type or any of these things. And the Insight Advisor will use that to know what kind of things it should be suggesting when it uses this field. So it's an incredible selection of things. It's basically got just about everything you can think of. So it's really good. And then what I can do is I can go, so for example, my sales adjust, so it's like the field sales, I don't want to use anyone to use that one, so I can hide him. And say I don't want to use that one, and I don't want to use sales quantity, because I want them to use my sales adjusted. My sales adjusted and quantity adjusted. And here I can change and say, no, you're not just a measure, you're a monetary value or percentage. Okay. Then what it does as well, if I scroll up a little bit, I can go back to all my dates. And it's at the moment linked up all my date transactions under the sales date. I can go and tell it, I don't want these two in this grouping anymore. I want them in a separate calendar grouping. So I can tell it to ungroup these two up at the top. It takes them off. And then I can go and tell it, create a new group. And this one, I'm going to call this one sales dates. Okay, and on any group you're setting up, you're going to choose which one you want. I want it to be a calendar one, and I want to use my invoice date. I took off invoice number. Okay. So I want invoice dates to be in my calendar range. And I can tell it to create that. Okay. Now, within packages is where you then tell it what you want to have included where. Okay, so I can tell it that, mine I'm going to tell it exclude this. And that's the easiest way to do it, because I'm just going to go and tell it I want persons in there. So persons is in his own little group. So it can't be used with any of the other things. And I can tell him create. And you would have to use person stuff on his own, or anything else on his own. Okay. You will see within that fields and groups, the other part I didn't show you is it also brings in your master items into here as well. So all our master items are here. So I can decide if I'm using a master item in my scripts and my visualizations, but it's specifically for some purpose on a specific visualization. I can then hide it here. So a user can't accidentally end up putting it onto something else, which again, very, 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 very handy to have. Okay, hierarchies is a normal thing where you can tell it, okay, give the user product class and subclass, let him put it on, let him be able to drill down on it. That'll work fine. And then behaviors, this is where you see now it's saying, okay, all my sales key figures cannot be used with persons. And I can easily add more behaviors to tell it, don't let this be used with that, or that with this, or this. And so you're now controlling what the Insight Advisor can suggest and recommend. And then that last one, the calendar periods, if we tell it we want to create one, it will say, okay, did we have any sort of group? And we had our sales dates. And then it will then, this is some of the features I haven't fully finished playing around with this. There's just, it's quite an incredible amount of things it can do. But this is where I'm going to call this, what did I call the other one? Sales dates. So let's call this invoices. If I can spell right, yeah. Invoice dates. But basically what it asks you is, what do you want to be looking at when they choose something? Do you want insights to generate year on year comparisons, or month against month comparisons, or any of those kind of things? You can tell it, always go and look at the last sorted value, which means in this case, when you go and say, show me sales by product class, it will show it for the latest year. Not currently, it shows you for everything in your data. So this is a way to control it, to say you want to see by year or the month of the year, or let's choose month of the year. Okay. Last sorted value then says that's how it's going to always do it. Okay. So I'm going to turn it off just so you can see some of the other options. You can then tell it, actually, no, when they run this, I want you to be able to compare year over year. And this last little button, very clever idea, because sometimes, like for now, we're on the 4th, we're on the 4th of the month. So to compare this month against last month is, it's a little bit invalid. So this, by saying you only want complete months, it would start from last month and look, compare last month, and then for us, well, basically last month and last month, this month, last year. And we could say create. Okay, so then we set up some calendars, and then in the same place, I can tell it in vocabulary. I can tell it, so you can see I have been playing around in here. To edit it, you go to the right-hand side, these little bubbles, and I can say edit. And any terms that I think the person could use that applies to my sales adjusted figure, I can put in here. So we've got revenue, we've got income, what else should we call it? Turnover. I just enter turnover and press enter, and it creates it. So basically a tag that it can now use. Okay, and I can say apply. Now if I go back to insights, you'll see straight on the side here, it's saying, sorry, this is now being defined by the business, by the app owner. But the thing is, now I can ask it to show me turnover. Turnover by products. Let's choose product type. Okay, and you see it's gone, it's fetched sales adjusted, because it knows that's what it meant by turnover. And then it shows different alternate graphs that it thinks you can use. Okay, and then as normal, you can tell it to go and add these to sheets. Now I'm going to put it on a new sheet. So if I go back to my sheets, I'll have a new one at the end here. And there's my sum of sales adjusted by product type. Okay, and that covers the main features that I've been through and that I've had a chance to play with. I've tried to make sure we've got enough time that there's places for questions, or if you want me to show you anything else. The other thing with these insights, with this whole model, on any of them, if you go to the vocabulary, they're easy enough to remove. The only one that worries me a bit, just because it's too easy, is there's a button here that says, okay, so I can go and disable logic, okay, which is great. So I can say confirm. Then if you're in the insights, it's back as it was. Okay, so you're back on the normal one. But then it also has the option to reset to default, which if I click on there and say reset, it takes out all the work I've just done. But I guess it has given you the option, so I could disable and just enable it here. I would hide that button a bit more, that reset to default, and maybe move it a bit so you've got to chase it hard to catch it. So it's not so easy to press. But yeah, so that's kind of the insights. From my point of view, those are the key things that it's gone through. There has been some other features. I mean, I didn't notice it in one of the earlier ones, but on any of the drop down now, you have the option now to show in your values what percentage are those values compared to each other. I hadn't seen that. I mean, probably many people have, but that's a problem with these with these releases so often. It's often these smaller things you don't notice, but that in itself can give you so much insight without actually even having pressed a button yet. And I see it gives two options. So the one option is the percentage, or the one is how many values have you got at each of those different values. So where is most of your data sitting? Very useful stuff. Things I used to see in Qlik View. All those things slowly coming back to Qlik Sense. But I think for me, the new chart, this is definitely going to find its way into my settings, and these reload buttons. I think that, and I mustn't forget my master items. So this, for me personally, as a developer and helping build these things, this is one of the best upgrades they've done, the new release. It's lots of things for me to play with. And then I think they've balanced it with that logical model so that you can set it up so your user can get just as much new things out of it. So at this point, does anyone have any questions or want to see anything, see how it worked? As for example, if we go and have a look at these buttons on the reload data, it's an action. So if I went and opened it in your list of actions, they're always adding new ones in here. Clear the selections, and at the very bottom is a new one, reload data. And then you'll see after it, it has this option. Do you want it to, when it does the reload, do you want it to be a partial one or a none? So on this button, I ticked it because that was to test my partial reload. If I go and look at this one, he's not ticked. And this is then the logic that your program then knows when it's running the only. It's got a flag that tells it, is it partial or is it a full load that it's running? And then on my sheet, this one that you can hide or not, if I'm on my sheet properties, there's the new show condition. And so my little variable just tells us whether it must show it's true or false. So it can hide a screen or not. And yeah, so that is kind of all the newest things. Anybody have any questions? Anything they want to see again? Very quiet. Okay, so let me remind everyone, if you want any more information or you want a copy of this app, I'm happy to send it to anyone. Just send an email to info@ricconsulting.co.za. And then you've probably seen we're running our own Qlik training courses. So if you're interested in further Qlik training, any of the Qlik Sense or end printing, just send an email to the training@ricconsulting.co.za and we can get in touch with you through that. Or if you want help to upgrade to this version, this is a great version, I'm very welcome to come and help you. But otherwise, I think we've hit the end of the webinar. If anyone, let me check if there's any messages here. Anyone's raised any questions? I don't see any at this stage. No. Okay. I hope you are still awake out there. It gets very lonely on these sessions. I don't hear a single sound except me.
Don't worry, it's fascinating.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Team RIC.
I'll send your money just now.
Thanks. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Just quickly, Mireille or Richard, will you guys send this recording to everybody, or if there's anybody?
Hi,
Yes.
everyone, Mireille. The recording will be available. I will send it to your account executive and they can forward it to you. But it will also be available within the next 24, let's say 12 hours on our YouTube channel. So you guys can just as well go watch it there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.